Hi everyone, it's Laisha with F The Stigma. I'm here to let you know that FTS is a nonprofit organization, and we have recently launched a medication assistance program to help fellow Marylanders get access to their necessary mental health medications. You can apply today on our website at fthestigma.com. You can also support this cause and program on our website as well. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode.
I did quit smoking.
It's funny, I was thinking about quitting these and then just doing cigarettes. Yeah.
Oh, you're such an addict.
Literally.
I love it. I love it.
So welcome back to the FTS podcast. We are here in the Valley, and I'm here with Kenny Clark, and I'm so happy I get to see you again. It's been so long. I genuinely don't remember the last moment I saw you.
Yeah, I don't either, actually. It's good to see you. You look fantastic.
Thank you.
I was just trying to remember the last time I saw you as well. I just don't remember, but it's good to see you.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard the name Laisha, images came flooding. So.
Yeah, it's been officially a year since I moved across the country again, and that's been a whole journey. But it always feels like home coming back to LA. Yeah. Like this place just holds such a special place in my heart because 18 coming here, learning about myself and finding recovery in an amazing community. Like I just walked in this building and like everybody's like, "Oh my God, Laisha, hi!" Yeah. Like it's just such a heartwarming feeling, and I haven't felt that in a while, so it's really nice.
I still feel it every time I come into the building. I've been in this community for 2.5 years. I've been discharged for 2 years, and I still am in this building 3 times a week, 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Not for any official business and not for therapy, just to see everybody and chop it up. And there's something about this building, as crazy as it sounds, it's like there's a spirit here.
Yeah.
And when I walk through the door, something changes. So I come to get refueled every couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
it's a safe place.
It's totally safe.
Yeah. So we went to the same IOP, sober living. We were in the same community. We went to the same detox.
Yes, we did.
And I got to hear your story at a meeting one day, and it was just like everybody's jaw dropped, and everybody suggested I come talk to you and have you on the podcast. And I was like, that's a no-brainer. Why hasn't Kenny spoken on this platform yet? So I'm really excited because you've experienced a lot. And from what I remember, so I kind of want to pick up, like, you had 10 years of recovery.
Mm-hmm. I did.
Give me kind of like a rundown of like what the worst of your addiction was before those 10 years, because you then later relapsed.
Yeah. Well, I will say that I drank a couple of times in high school, had no use for it. And it was I was a graduate student at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. I was an engineering student. And I had my father died that year, and that was the first time. I was 22 years old, and it was the first time that I ever sought out a drink, something like that. And it started just as one drink a night. I want to be clear. I'd drink a beer, sleep for a couple of hours, and then, try to stave off the madness for another 22 hours. And fast forward 13 years later, I've been chronically inebriated and high for 12, 13 years. I made it work. I wound up going to medical school, the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. I made it through medical school, and I made it through all but my last year of residency. When I finally went to treatment, I was in my last year of residency at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. I'd been kicked out of the house by my wife, my now ex-wife. I had lost my vehicles. Long story short, eventually I got evicted from the apartment I was living in. Mm-hmm. So for the last 3 or 4 months of that active addiction, which was 24 hours a day, I was actually living in the hospital. I was sleeping in call rooms, and then people would catch me and know that I'm not on call. So when the heat got high enough, I started sleeping down in the morgue, down in the basement of the hospital. A couple nights a week, because I was coked up constantly. I think I was living on cocaine and pharmaceutical grade amphetamines for the last 2 years of my active addiction. I got into opiates, some fentanyl. Fentanyl It seems to be a new thing in the last few years on the streets, but fentanyl is not new. I was using fentanyl 20 years ago. Anyway, what happened was I just finally, like I think all of us who are heavily addicted to anything, we finally hit our limit, and I hit my limit. I was missing work. I was not answering pages, which is it's the unpardonable sin in medicine. Making a lot of mistakes, and then I just finally walked in the front door of a psychiatric hospital one night across the street from the hospital I was working at, and I said, I really need some help, and that started that year. So at that point, I was broke. Every time I always ask for help, I'm always broke, out of dope, and hopeless. You know what I mean? It all happens at the same time, and then I ask for help. This was the first time it ever happened. I was young, and it's a lot easier to stay engaged in life when I'm using things like cocaine or amphetamines or whatever than it is being drunk.
Mm-hmm.
I can't drink at work, but I can use cocaine at work.
It's funny how we rationalize it.
Yeah.
How did it progress to that? It was one beer. You said one drink a night.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to give myself that one drink every night to take the edge off. And it kind of started when your father died.
Yeah.
I mean, you did say it was like a 13-year progression. Was it like really gradual?
No. Actually, the progression, I would say, over the course of a year, here's how it happened. So I never had a use for alcohol, never. I didn't I remember when I used it when I was younger, I didn't like that loss of control. I didn't like the way I felt the next day. I didn't like, I knew that I had maybe said things to people that I wish I hadn't said, and I didn't like that. So I had no real use for it. Now I had a use for it because I remembered it was a pretty decent sedative, right? So drink a beer, sleep for a couple of hours, worked fine for 3 or 4 weeks. And then it was 2 beers, sleep for a few hours. And then it was 3 beers. And then it was 3 beers and a shot. And then, so over the course of a year, I would say roughly a year, by the time I started medical school, I had gone from being a non-user, a non-drinker, a non-addict, a non-alcoholic. I didn't have anything against it. I just had no use for these things. I went from being a non-everything to shit-faced 7 nights a week by myself, just sitting at home. And then I discovered cocaine, and then everything changed. When I discovered cocaine, that was really, even though I was already very, very definitively an alcoholic, when I discovered cocaine, that was the launching pad for the rest of the next 30 years of my addiction.
What do you think it was about cocaine that took it to the next level?
Oh, I mean, cocaine gave me exactly what I want. See, the thing about addiction is that we often talk, I think anyway, I hear people talk about their drug of choice. It's really a preference. We all have a preference, right? I mean, we can be addicted, whether it's alcohol, marijuana, fentanyl, OxyContin, cough syrup. People are addicted to bizarre things, but it's the addiction, I think, is the same. It's just I have a preference. Cocaine and amphetamines, the level of awareness, the level of alertness, the energy that I got from it, and the confidence. I mean, I would go from being miserably depressed to feeling, maybe I should run for president of the United States in an hour. You know what I mean? And I loved that. It charged me up. I became very bold on cocaine, a killer, and that only lasted for a short time.
How short is of a time?
Oh, I started petering out. I mean, for a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two, I could maintain that mindset. And I was using it in school. I was a medical student at this time. I was coked up constantly in school. And it helped me in the beginning. I could go through a textbook of immunology in one night, just like, I was unstoppable. I thought everything was accelerating when I was using cocaine, everything, including my ego. But after a couple of months, I started realizing that I wasn't getting the same punch, that I was getting, for every little bit of activity that I got from it, it was offset by a few hours or maybe 12 hours the next day of headaches and being miserable and craving more. So even though in the beginning, I think cocaine was very helpful. It kept me focused. It kept me straight, really linear in my thinking. The focus was incredible. And I felt very powerful. But in time, what happened is I lost all focus because all of my thoughts started drifting to cocaine. I couldn't sit through an hour-long lecture without dipping out to the bathroom, you know. So it didn't take long, but once that starts, I was just never able to walk away from it, constantly chasing it again and again and again.
With cocaine, there's physical dependency with cocaine, is there?
No, it's
all mental.
It's all mental. Yeah, I mean, cocaine withdrawal for me is sleeping for 3 days because I've been up for 7, or whatever. But no, the stimulants in general, the stimulants don't. People will say that they have physical elements to their withdrawal. I've never felt any, and I don't know a whole lot of people that have. But definitely, the psychological dependence is excruciating. I have to have it. It becomes that strong. It did for me.
What do you think motivated your using throughout the years? Do you believe that we as addicts have like a motivator, even if we're like aware of it or not, for using?
That's an interesting question because I've actually asked myself this. I think that, the motivation for me, I think in the long run becomes this. When I look back in those early years, when I started to lose things, I would lose something and then I would kind of trivialize it because when I'm in full-blown drug addiction, people often misunderstand. I really think they do, and I don't blame them, but people who are not addicts misunderstand. It's not just making stupid decisions. It's not just being out of control. I have a need, and I cannot eliminate this from my mind. I can't wish it away. I can't push it around by any other, and I will satisfy that. It's that strong. So what happens in the beginning is I start losing little things. Yeah. My health maybe, work performance goes down. For me, it was my wife saying, get the hell out. But non-addicts and non-alcoholics, people who don't deal with this, they would look at that and say, hey, your wife is standing at the door. You need to do something about this. Where a guy like me will say, maybe I can do better,
Maybe I can
life wouldn't be too bad without her. She's a nag, Sweetheart, before you leave, just make sure, you got $200 for me, That's the way we start reasoning these things. So what happens is I start rationalizing my losses.
Yeah.
Unnecessary. That's expendable. That's disposable. She's disposable. All these things. But then what happens is I get to a point when the losses are too much for me to ignore. Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight. We often tell stories. I've told stories in the past like, oh, I woke up one day in treatment and I said, what's happened? It doesn't happen like that. You make these incremental changes in your life that are all negative. I give up a little of this. I give up a little of that, all for another hit. And next thing you know, I've given up a shitload. And then what happens is I wake up one day and I realize that, and I'm overwhelmed with shame. I'm overwhelmed with regret, which for me, regret is by far the most malignant disease that circulates in me when I'm in active addiction, sometimes even now. Wishing I hadn't done this, wishing I hadn't done that. I get sad. My self-doubt is crippling, low self-worth. All these things come at once. Now, I can go to therapy. I can ask for help. I can do a lot of things to help me through this, but I know a quicker solution. All I need is $100, the keys of the car, in 20 minutes, and I can make it all go away. And that's when it really becomes a problem, like one that I cannot handle on my own. Because every time I try to, I fail very, very quickly. And that's what I think other people see. They see the insanity of it. And I don't blame anyone for thinking this. How many people in my life, people who have loved me, close people, have said, Kenny, how can you be so stupid? I don't take that personally, because if I watch someone do this, I would say, how can you be so stupid? But it's not an issue of stupidity. It's an issue, it's very complex, actually. I mean, treatment, I'm a 12-stepper. I believe that's the simplicity of the program. I believe in that. But what goes on up here that keeps a guy like me continuing to smoke a pipe, continuing to hit the bottle and occasionally the needle, what goes on up here is very complex, and it becomes overpowering. So I just stay stuck, hoping for the best, which never happens.
In this period is about 13 years of active addiction. From what age to what age?
22 to 36, actually, so 14.
So you graduated medical school?
I did.
What did you specialize in?
I specialized in, here's an interesting story that very few people know. Michael Lynch knows this.
Wow.
When I was in my last year of medical school, I was living on cocaine and amphetamines, and I really wanted to be a surgeon. I wanted to be a transplant surgeon. That was actually what I wanted to do. Wow. I started medical school with that intention. And by the time I was finishing medical school, 7 years later, I knew that there was no way I could stand. It was a subconscious thought, but it was there. It was very real and very powerful. I knew that there was no way I could stand in the OR for 12 hours at a time and not use. There's just no way. And I can't scrub out every 30 minutes, So I went into pathology, which turns out I turned out to love pathology. Wow. And I'm glad I did it, but I went into it, I was very misguided. I went into it for all the wrong reasons. I knew I could sit at a microscope, probably alone most of the time, use drugs and get away with it. Responsibly, of course. Yeah. So that's what I went into.
That's so funny because we really do have those thoughts.
Yeah.
Of like, well, yeah, I wouldn't be able to be we think of those little things like, I can't scrub out every hour to do a line. As a surgeon, let me go do it to a different field. Right. Even though that's like such a big decision just to manage our addiction.
That is the reason I chose pathology. I haven't shared that with maybe two people in my life because I'm embarrassed by that. Because I was, there were surgeons I went to University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, which is one of the top 5 medicals, at least at that time, in the nation. And I was being recruited. There were several of the surgeons on staff saying, hey, come join us. And
what is pathology exactly?
Pathology, I'll give you two answers.
Okay.
One, the word pathology is the study of disease. But the better way to explain it is tell you what a pathologist does.
Okay.
If you have a lump in your breast,
and
you go to the doctor, and they take a biopsy of that, they give me the biopsy. I do molecular studies, I look under the microscope, I do all these things, and then I issue a report that says this is cancer, what kind of cancer, what is the molecular profile of the cancer, what's the, all that stuff so they can treat it. If you want to know if you have the breast cancer gene, someone draws your blood, they give it to a guy like me, or another pathologist, and we sequence the genes, we look for the mutation. And then if you have it, we issue the report and says, yeah, they have such and such mutation. Anything that comes out of the human body is examined by a pathologist.
Wow.
Anything. Yeah.
But you're also a coroner.
Yeah, I had, fast forward, on my second attempt at life.
So you start trying to attempt sobriety. We're back on the timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You attempt.
So what happened was I went to treatment that year a couple of times. And the third time was a charm. I kind of just gave up. It wasn't really so much, it was a forced surrender. I didn't really have a place to go anymore. I was still broke. They offered to keep me in sober living at this place back in Ohio and stay in their treatment facility. So I said, why not, essentially. And that's when I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps. Mm-hmm. And over the next 10 years, surprisingly, not only did I stay clean of everything, opiates, benzos, dope, alcohol, everything. But I went back and I finished my last year of residency. And then I did a fellowship, which is subspecialty training. I did a fellowship in neuropathology, which is diseases and disorders of the brain, central nervous system. And then I did another fellowship in forensic pathology. So all told, I wound up getting certified in anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, neuropathology, and forensic pathology over the next 7 years, and then I started working as a forensic pathologist. Forensic pathology is where we take all the different disciplines of pathology, tissues, fluids, toxicology, molecular biology, like on occasion, microbiology, all these different things, and we figure out why someone died. So, and that's what I was doing up until 2017. Yeah.
You said you forced surrendered. It was like a forced surrender, but you got 10 plus years of sobriety through that. How is that a forced surrender?
No, when I say it was a forced surrender, I kind of had no good option.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give it a whirl. It wasn't, the surrender that I had this last stretch was very different. It was me waking up, making a phone call and saying, I really need your help. I'll do anything it takes. I'm willing to follow suggestions. That's a different kind of surrender.
I think people find it mind-blowing that someone could relapse after 10 years of recovery. It almost sounds discouraging to some. So what do you think it was in these 10 years that just didn't work?
Oh, that's a very important question. I'm glad that you asked that. Let me first say that no one was more mind-blown than me.
Really?
Okay? In fact, what was even more mind-blowing than my relapse to me was what happened after. I'm still astonished to this day how far I fell and how fast I fell after 10 years of sobriety. 10 years clean. And it all unwound fast. What kept me, they talk about this in the rooms a lot. What kept me clean for the first 7.5 years was I was active in meetings. I had a sponsor. I didn't talk to him every day, but I had one. I did some step work. I did stuff, and I was making progress in life. Like what? I think that one of the things I really believe that many addicts, if not all of us, need is forward motion. The idea of just sitting in this room clean for the rest of my life is nauseating to me, right? I don't want to be stuck in any, the reason I wanted to be clean finally was because I wanted to get on with life. I wanted to reach my full potential, find my purpose, find some fulfillment, satisfaction, all these things. And I can't do it just sitting around the house, right? So it was a combination of things that kept me clean. But then I took a job in Syracuse, New York. This was in Pittsburgh. And when I moved to Syracuse, it was a job of a lifetime. I was so happy. I was so happy. It was the job I wanted.
What was it?
I was hired to be a medical examiner for the Onondaga County, which is where Syracuse is, medical examiner. And I had a position, faculty position at Syracuse University. And I also had a faculty position at Upstate Medical University. So I was teaching, I was writing papers, I was doing forensic work, I was testifying in court. A couple of times I did some consulting. But it was just such a wonderful life that every day was different. Every day was largely dictated by my own motivation, I had some things I had to do. I wasn't punching a clock. I had responsibilities, and I was just expected to take care of them, and I ran my own show pretty much. Showed up teaching graduate students. I loved everything about it, and it was stimulating. But things changed when I got to Syracuse.
What changed?
What changed was I initially started going to meetings, and as soon as my life was really accelerating when I landed there. I had teaching obligations out of the gate. I had service obligations out of the gate. Started going to court, things like that, and I'm wearing suits now. I like suits too. I like a nice suit, And, I was I didn't have any financial concerns anymore. I just had a lot of freedom. I could breathe a little bit, So what happened was I mistook comfort My comfort became my complacency. Let me put it that way. My comfort became my complacency. And what happened was, 5 meetings a week eventually, in short time, became 3 meetings a week. And then it became 1 meeting a week. And then it was 1 meeting a week staring at the fucking clock. You know what I mean? It was just, and then it was no meetings. I didn't reintegrate into any kind of recovery fellowship. I was not thinking so much about being an addict anymore. I didn't talk about it, but there was also a part of me that was still secretive. Nobody knew. I didn't have to tell anybody. So if I don't go to a meeting, I'm not accountable. And it worked for a while. I had so much momentum in my life. I was living the life that I wanted to live, not like the best I could do. This is exactly what I had wanted. I'm down to the shoes on my feet. I wore what I wanted, and my ego continued to grow. No real gratitude. And eventually, as responsibilities piled up, my anxiety grew, irritability grew. Like they say in the book, I became very restless, irritable, and discontent all the time. Started copying resentments, feeling entitled to certain things. And eventually that was starting to affect my sleep. I don't sleep much as it is, but this was making it even worse. And then over the course of about 2 years, I went from fully involved in a program to no involvement in the program, to sitting there one night wondering, how am I going to get any sleep? Angry, really angry, lonely as hell. All I did was work. And I got a prescription from a doctor. I went to a sleep specialist thinking, she's going to tell me I have sleep apnea or something. I don't know what I was looking for. But surprisingly, to my surprise, she gave me a prescription for Xanax. I was not fishing for it either.
Wow.
But when I got that prescription, I was totally disconnected. I was completely unprotected, and I was utterly unaccountable. And by this time, the problem I have is the longer I stay clean, the less of an addict I feel like. So after 10 years of being clean, I'm not even using that terminology, not even in my own head. So I took a Xanax. And that Xanax, I remember I was sitting in my car. I remember right outside the grocery store that I picked up from the pharmacy, a Wegmans. And my life radically changed very quickly.
How did it change radically?
Well, the prescription was gone in 72 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I needed something, so then I started drinking. And I hadn't had a drink for 10 years at least. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is I wouldn't have called myself, people always say, I have a problem with Coke, but I don't have a problem with alcohol. I have a problem with this and not that. I would have 10 years prior to this, I would have said, I don't really have a problem with alcohol. I'm more of a cokehead and dope. I like opiates too, but not really alcohol. So I take a drink, and I'm telling you, I took a drink. I remember I stopped on the way back from work because I needed something. So I left work early. I stopped just to get a 12-pack of beer. And I'm telling you, by 10 p.m., I didn't know my fucking name.
Wow.
And that was it. Then it was liquor, and then I was driving around some part of Syracuse, in circles looking for a plug that so-and-so gave me a number from so-and-so. And I went for 10 years. I got licensed in 2 states. I got quadruple boarded by the American Board of Medicine. And within a month, I'm looking for a plug in a city that I don't even know where I'm driving. I'm driving in circles, turn left, turn left, turn left. It was nuts. I ran into a pizza shop, right into the wall. It was crazy.
It's really tricky because of a doctor prescription. I feel like it's not talked about enough. Like I've heard it here and there with people talking about their recovery. Like, Yeah, they relapse with when a doctor prescribes them a certain thing, like, oh, my doctor prescribed me Adderall for this, or Xanax for sleep, or plain anxiety, and it's a tricky thing because we have to find these alternatives, but you didn't have a single hesitation. You're in the grocery store parking lot. You just picked this up. You're not even waiting until you get home. Yeah. You're like, I'm gonna pop this Xanax
right now. So I'm already sedated by the time I get home.
Yeah.
And I actually, truth be told, I took 2. After 10 years, I doubled the dose right out of the gate. I took 2. Yeah. No, it doesn't. One thing I definitely know, and I know this because, ironically, one of the things I was teaching a little bit at treatment centers back east before I got out here was neurobiology of addiction.
Wow.
Which I know pretty well.
Tell me about it.
I can promise you that the addict brain does not care. It certainly doesn't know, and if it did know, it wouldn't care where the drug came from. Doesn't know if I'm pulling it out of my plug's pocket, out of my sock, or coming from a pharmacy. It does not know. It does not know. Mm-hmm. So I hear that all the time too, and I have very strong opinions about that, just because of my own experience. Mm-hmm.
Before we dive more into this relapse after 10 plus years of sobriety, there's a huge stigma on AA. I feel like I've gotten a lot of like messages and comments about that, and have also had other perspectives on my podcast where they're like, I don't like AA, and I'm here with like X amount of time sober without it. What do you think is so special about AA and that helped you? Yeah, like why does it speak true to you, and how did it help you? Yeah. And what would you say to somebody that just is not about it whatsoever?
I have a couple of things to say about that. One answer is this, and it's explicitly written about on pages 20 and 21 of AA's Big Book, where 100 years ago they recognized that there are people who drink too much but aren't alcoholics. They say this.
Wow.
They can, if the wife is at the door, they can stop. Okay, I don't need it that much. And then there's another class of drinker they call serious drinkers, I think. Those people will push it even further, right? But if something really bad happens, like if they have liver disease or something, with a little help, they can also back off. They can stop. They may not like it, but they can do it. And then the third category is that's why they're writing the book, for the third category. A real alcoholic. These are the people that do the senseless. These are the people that mystify us. These are the people who will smoke and drink away 2 wives of their bank account, their retirement, their home, their cars, 3 medical licenses, 4 board certifications, everything in their life that matters to them, they will drink and smoke it away while the whole world says, why? That's what I am, okay? So what I would say to that person is, maybe they're not. I mean, that's something we don't talk about often, but, look, if you give my mom's she can't understand any of this. I love my mother, okay? She is just naive to all this. You talk about confused. My mom is confused by me being right here. You know what I mean? Because she's watched what I've handed away. I've handed away, honestly, I had a life that most people would be envious of. And it's good, has nothing to do with my life today. But if you gave my mom 2 martinis and the keys of the car, and she gets a DUI, she's not an alcoholic. She's not. Just because you have consequences doesn't make you an addict or an alcoholic. What makes us addicts and alcoholics is it doesn't matter what the consequence is. I'm coming back again and again and again and again and again. So that's the first point I would make. Just because someone has a drinking problem or just because someone likes to use some cocaine doesn't necessarily mean they're an addict. However, let's say they are, and they can just stop. I know people that have done that too. I know people that have done that. The question I would say is, how long do you think you can stay stopped? And the other question I would say is, and this is what I really draw from the program now, is that what's your quality of life now that you are stopped? They call it white knuckling in Alcoholics Anonymous. In my Narcotics Anonymous meetings, they call it white knuckling too. In other words, if I really buckle down, muscle up, can I never smoke or drink or inject anything ever again? Maybe. But there's only one way I'm going to find that out. I'm not willing to take that chance anymore, okay? But what I find in the program, it doesn't matter. AA, I do NA now just because I landed in an NA, but I love both fellowships. Even though I stopped using, not long ago you asked me about what happened, what kept it going. And I was telling you get into this torment, you get into this, you see loss of control. I can't control this. I'm handing away everything that matters to me. My self-esteem is taking a hit. My finances are taking a hit. I can't even look at myself anymore. I'm overwhelmed with shame, guilt, remorse, doubt, regret, everything. And it gets to that point, and we make a lot of bad decisions in our addictions. Anytime I used this in my addiction, someone deserves an amend. Okay? I promise you that, okay? But what happens is, just because I take away the crack doesn't do anything for the residual damage. I'm still living in regret. I'm still living in shame. I'm still living in self-doubt, low self-worth, horrid self-image. Those stay. Now, can I force myself to live the rest of my life with all of those qualities and just hope that I can make it work? I can try it. Some people do it. People we call dry drunks. Some people can do it. Fuck that. Look, if I have to live the rest of my life feeling overwhelmed with shame and low self-worth, living every single day, wishing for a different past, living in regret, if I have to live the rest of my life like that, fuck it, I'd rather be smoking crack. So for me, there's no option.
Yeah.
I will always go back to the pipe. I will always go back to the bottle. I will always go back to the pill, anything. I don't give a shit. Kratom. I will always go back to whatever it is to take me out of this situation. I need a program. I need a fellowship of men and women to support me, like-minded people, like-spirited people. I can't imagine doing it any other way. Honestly, I don't know why you would want to do it any other way. It works. And I'm just starting to feel it now.
Yeah.
So that's my long-winded answer to the question. But
I also think that you don't have to be an addict to even benefit from the program itself.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Let me be clear about that. I wasn't implying that if you're not an addict, if it sounded like that, that's not what I was saying.
But that's what came to mind.
But no, I think 12 steps is once you've really worked them and you've incorporated those into your life, who wouldn't want to do them?
And to get back on the timeline, you said not even 72 hours. What was it? Yeah, not even 72 hours. You were driving around in circles in Syracuse.
Oh yeah, that was like a month later. I mean, I just spun out fast.
Yeah,
it was insane.
And it was mind blowing. But were you still trying to manage this life as a medical examiner?
Yeah.
How'd that look?
It looked. I mean, I was there every day, but let me tell you, I wound up losing all 3 of those positions in about less than 2 months.
Wow.
And it wasn't due to not showing up. It was due to, you might call it my assholism. A lot of these, addiction comes with a lot. It's not just the use, but there are behaviors that come with that, as most people know. And there's changes in mindset that come with that. Everything changes when I pick something up. So I was hanging on. I was still showing up and performing, but I was very irritable, temperamental, very abrasive with people, telling people off, like who didn't deserve it. I just spun out. I mean, I just became, everybody saw my alter ego, and not very likable.
What's something you really regret from that time? Because you said regret. I think it was regret.
Yeah.
That really.
I regret it. There's one regret that sticks with me, and I talked about it with my sponsor too. Before I left Syracuse, my boss, who was an exceptional pathologist and he never did anything to me. Good man. I wound up sending some dishonest emails and letters to county officials out of envy, I think is what it was. I resented him because I envied him, and it all came to the surface when I started using. And long story short, it took about a year, but I followed him in the news, and eventually I think he lost his job because of this. Yeah. And it's one thing to torpedo my life, right? But I'm pretty sure I torpedoed this guy's life. And I still have a hard time when I think about that, because there's no way not that you can ever justify torching someone's life, but this guy, really, I couldn't justify it in any way. It was just something I feel very, very ashamed of doing. And every now and then I still revisit that. Not sure how I'm going to make an amend there, but I'm sure I'll talk about it.
Amends are hard.
Yeah.
So in this relapse, what you said, it spiraled very quickly. It was a surprise to you how fast it crashed down. What led you to coming out here to California? Like, what was the chain of events?
Yeah, crazy. I'll give you the 60-second version. So I was unemployed in Syracuse within a couple of months. And I was hired to be the deputy chief I got another job, a better one, right? And I was hired to be the deputy chief medical examiner for the state of Mississippi. And I had faculty appointments at Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And long story short is, on my way down to Mississippi, I got a DUI in Richland, Ohio. I was actually they were expecting me. So I sat in jail for, 5 days or something like that. And they said, we still want you to come, just go to treatment. So I had to finish a 6-week treatment. And job was still there, everything, just finished the treatment.
It's kind of them.
And I've done many treatments at this point, just finish the treatment, Kenny. And 3 weeks in, I relapsed. And they rescinded the offer. Long story, I couldn't stay sober for 3 weeks. This is the greatest opportunity. This is a better opportunity than Syracuse. This is it, Had an office in Biloxi, right on everything. It was just dynamite. And I couldn't stay sober for 3 weeks. I threw that away. Mm-hmm. Anyway, long story short is, so I spent some time in the Richland County Jail in Ohio, and then it was about a year later, just from drinking and using benzos, I was spent 2 weeks almost in Hammett Hospital in Erie, Pennsylvania, with liver failure, and I was vomiting blood. And I was sick, I was yellow, And then about 3 months after that, I went to the city mission in Erie, Pennsylvania.
So you ended up being homeless?
Yep.
How did California come in the picture?
Well, I just kept going in and out for the next 5 years.
Oh, wow. And then you didn't have a home in these 5 years?
Well, I would go into my mom's, and then and I would relapse, and they would kick me out, or I would go sleep. I had an ex-girlfriend who would let me sleep there for a couple of weeks until I was being, I can only loiter for so long, Everybody has their limits, you know. And then what happened is it was mind-numbing. I was at like 13 treatments over the course of the next 5 years.
Wow.
Numerous detoxes. And I had a lot of friends who were dealers, and I had my COVID money coming in, which was like a double whammy. And then I get these little shit-ass jobs, making boxes and just doing nothing, just trying to pay bills. You know how we do. It's just crazy. You find a way to get drugs and alcohol. And finally what happened was I was at the end. I'd been smoking crack and drinking. I don't even remember the last couple of weeks. But I was sitting at I was living in this little efficiency shithole. And a friend of mine came over because I don't answer the phone when I'm using, you know. And he found me all busted up. So he made a call to a treatment center, and it turned out it was in Malibu. And he sent an Uber the next day. I barely remembered him even being at the apartment, you know, but I got in the Uber and landed in Malibu 12 hours later.
I remember you really struggled getting there.
Yeah, it was, well, by the time the Uber showed up, I was bombed by the time Uber showed up. I think it was around noon. I was bombed. Just, you know, why wait till 2 p.m., right? Let's get it going.
Yeah.
And I finished the last of the crack I had, and I had a couple of Ativans or something. I took those, and then I took some liquor into the Uber. I genuinely didn't know. I thought I was going to Ohio. There's a treatment center.
You're like, I'm just getting in an Uber right now.
Yeah, I didn't know. So I just packed a couple of shirts, you know?
Yeah.
And we started, the only thing I remember about the whole trip is I said, are we going the wrong way? You know? And the guy said, you're going to Pittsburgh. For what? The airport. Where am I going? And I just remember him saying, I don't know. So I got
I'm
off.
just the driver, dude.
Yeah, so I finished a bottle when I was in there, and I just so barely remember this, but I staggered up to I had no idea where I was going. And I went up, he dropped me off at Spirit. Worst airline in the world to be hungover on, right? And or coming down anyway. And I walked up and I said, you know, I just explained, look, I think actually what I said to the woman was, ma'am, short little black woman, very, very nice. I said, ma'am, I am fucked off, but I'm trying to get to treatment. And she said, don't move, like I could move, you know. So don't leave. And she went and got a wheelchair and brought it around. She wheelchaired me through the whole airport and took me right up to the gate. Wow. And sat there and put her hand on I had my hand right here, and she put her hand on mine and just sat there for 15 minutes. And they helped me on that plane. Wow. And then a guy named Adam picked me up, and I've been here ever since.
If you don't mind sharing,
no.
I think you almost like made a deal with yourself. Like you were feeling very suicidal getting there.
Oh yeah. What happened was this was my 18th treatment, and everything in my life that mattered, and I mean everything in my life that mattered, was gone. I didn't have any money even, and you know, fucking wearing hand-me-down clothes from the little donation bucket, and I just astonished. How did this happen? You know, how did I allow this to happen? And I just felt so. It was the first time in my life I really felt hopeless, like no hope. Like, if I scream as loud as I can, nobody's going to hear me. Like, there's just no hope. And, like, I didn't even want to get out of bed. And so I said to myself, you know, this is a good time. You know, my life is over. I was 50 at the time. I had 50 years. I had some good ones. I had some successes. I had some joys. 50 is going to be it, you know? And I was actually okay with it. Like, this is what I'm going to do. My plan was to, once the Valium ran out, you know, I'd get every last bit of Valium I could, you know? Mm-hmm. But I had planned I was going to hang myself. Being a medical examiner, I know all the good ways you can kill yourself. And I was just going to simply hang myself. It was on the second floor in their detox suite, and as soon as the Valium was out. And I was okay with it. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to share. I didn't want to see a therapist. Just This is how it's going to end because I am out of rope and I don't know what to do. And I've done this so many times that it was mind-numbing. I mean, so many times. Holy shit. How many times am I going to go through this sequence of admissions questions? And I just ran out of energy. I've never been de-energized like that in my whole life. Wow. And that was it. And
what convinced you to you're still here with us, which I'm really grateful. But what happened?
Well, what happened was, a few days into that, two things happened back to back. The first thing that happened was there was a guy who he came in to speak one night. It was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days in. I knew it was coming, Well, the first thing that happened is they moved me to a house, so I had to find another location to hang myself. But what happened was I heard a guy who was talking about steps and everything. I didn't like him either, to be honest. I thought he was an asshole. He just rubbed me the wrong way. But he used this word. It was a word that just caught my attention. He said, why is it that, and he was like looking at me, he goes, why is it that you guys, all of us, we always come in, we beg for help, please help me with this. And then we want to negotiate the way that help comes. It was the word negotiate. It just caught my attention. I don't know why. I've been to thousands of meetings. I've been to 19 treatments in my life, countless detoxes. I never heard anybody use that word. And it just caught me off guard. Negotiate. And then I went back to my bed that night and I was laying down and I was just thinking about it. Maybe I am negotiating. It just struck me, It wasn't like this earth-shaking moment. But it caught my attention enough to put me on pause, And then as luck would have it, it was either the next day or the day after that, 2 people from here, Jesse and Michael, they come in for an H&I panel, and I don't know them at all, okay? And it was the first H&I panel, I swear to you, I've heard, how many H&I panels I've heard in all my treatments, like, okay, here we go, it was so shitty, and this is what happened, and now I have this dope-ass life. No, but when they spoke, I don't know, I just felt it. Something was different. And I never thought I'd see him again, And again, it wasn't like this, it wasn't like God descended from the heavens, but I heard it. So it was like Justin first, boom, boom. Over the course of about 2 days, I went from feeling like committed. I was dedicated. I'm going to kill him. I'm going back to Pennsylvania in a box. I went from that to, I'll see what happens. Give it one more try. Yeah. It was wild. I was I was genuinely committed.
What was different about this? So now you're kind of committed to this recovery process. What did that take?
Oh, it took open-mindedness first and foremost. And they talk about this, in the program, open-mindedness. I personally believe open-mindedness is probably the most important principle. See, I went into it thinking, and this, I'll be honest with you, I went into this thinking, I know every page of the big book. Tell me a page, I'll tell you what's on it. I know the basic text. I know the steps, traditions, all these things. I know all the supplementary literature. I've done this for how many years? I used to sponsor people, led gazillions of meetings. I've done all these things. And I'm a doctor. I have degrees in electrical engineering and medicine. I have all these accomplishments. There's nothing that you're going to teach me. I would go into every treatment believing that, like really believing that. There's nothing I'm going to learn here. And when I got here, when I stepped in that door, I'm telling you, maybe I don't know it all, maybe I don't know it all. And I just, very slowly, it didn't happen overnight, it didn't, because I thought about running a bunch of times, but I just slowly opened my mind to the idea, if I could be real honest, the idea that this felon who spent 20 years in the penitentiary, has tattoos from his neck to his toes, I had to open my mind to the idea that maybe this man can help me stay clean. As wild as that was for me to even consider the possibility, I had to consider it. And I started to.
And what did that look like?
That looked like me taking small risks, what felt like risks. They weren't risks, but for me, it looked like, writing on the steps, for instance, writing on the step work. I've written on steps before, but not quite like this.
Yes. And what had the most significance in the step work for you? Like, what played the biggest role?
For me, it was step 9.
The amends.
I still get goosebumps when I think about the biggest amend that I made. So you go through all these other steps, right? Self-examination. And 4 is hard. I think it says on page 98 of the 12 and 12, so, self-inspection is the means by which we bear a new light or bring new light to bear on the dark and negative side of our nature, something like that. So you go through that, and that's enlightening, and it's healing, and then you go through 6 and 7. But step 9, I made an amend with a man that I had really resented, like evil resentment, for 40 years. And through the steps, I realized he was a good man, first of all. I realized I saw my own faults, I saw my own flaws. I really gained a lot of humility. I'm not humble, by the way, but I'm saying I have these glimpses of humility, and this was one of those moments. And I realized I've really harmed him. So I went to make an amend to this person that I, quite honestly, a year before this, I would have said, you owe me a fucking amend, And I made it, and we talked for like an hour. And I walked away. I mean, think about this. I walk into the program drunk, fucked off on crack and pills and everything, hating everybody, right? Fuck you is my message for the world. A lot of us are like that. And this guy, it's even worse than that, right? And over the course of 8 steps, I get into a place when not only am I willing to make this amend, right hand to God, I wanted to make this amend. Like, I got a restoration of my conscience. Bizarre. It was really, you talk about, let me tell you something. I have a $500,000 education, and what I've learned in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, what I have learned in these rooms from the men and women and through step work, by far trumps the amount of knowledge I've gained in however many years I have in formal education. It's a whole different part of the brain, and I never could learn it anywhere else. So for me to make an amend like that and actually mean it, and everybody feels good, everybody forgives everybody, everything is healed, and now today, when I see him, I embrace him. When I talk to him on the phone, I'm happy to. That's a transformation that I never, ever would have put together on my own. That was, when I made that amend, that's when I bought in. That was when I said, this works. This works.
What role do you think God played in your sobriety and recovery?
I think God played every role in my sobriety. That's another thing that's changed. I've always been a believer in God, right? I always have. But I never, ever believed that God had any interest in me.
Wow.
I never believed that God orchestrated anything. I couldn't imagine a God that would care, right? But when I look at the way things have unfolded in my life now, I believe had I gone to that treatment center in Ohio, which I had been to 8 times before that, I would have been just as suicidal, went back to where I was living and killed myself. It's a certainty, because that was the plan. So to bring me out here was definitely against my will. That's one. Okay, you can chalk that up to good luck, good fortune, right? But then to drop me in this community right here of all communities. Now, I've been in recovery communities in Pittsburgh, Erie, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and they're good. Not like this. I think you know what I'm talking about. Not like this. This community is different. These people love one another like I've never experienced before. And God, I believe, what a better place for me to learn what I need than from the most unlikely group of people. Every person in my life, the people I love and respect the most, the people I love, people I would bury a body for, these people, the only way I ever would have interacted with them 10 years ago is if I was doing their autopsy. And now these are the most influential people in my life. You telling me that's not God's way of saying, open your eyes, dude. Open your eyes. Other things just to happen, my heart has changed. You know, I'm trying to get a medical license now again. And the question is, what am I going to do with it? I could go back to what I was doing, but I just don't. I'm not chasing the same things anymore. I'm just not. I don't care about the fucking suits. Or nice suit's nice. No, you know what I'm saying? But I'm at a place now, I've never felt content in my life, ever. Never. I've never been content. Like, yes, I have goals. I want to practice again. I want to do more in the attic community. I have all these things I want to do. I would like to get another car because mine's breaking down. But if these things don't happen, I can honestly say I'm all right. That's God. It has to be. And the way I actually got back, see, I've always gone to church. And so I know I'm getting long-winded, but you got me rolling. I've always been a churchgoer. Since I was 5 years old, I've always been in the church. Devout. And for the last 10 years, I had not gone to church. I just figured God, I didn't resent God at all. I just figured God, he's got enough to do. He doesn't, how many chances is he going to give me? You know, I didn't blame God for ignoring me. So then I come here, I meet Michael. I meet all these people that I felt really out of place the first 3 months. And then Michael or Jesse, one of the two, finally says, you want to go to church with me? And the truth of the matter is, no, I do not. I have no use for it anymore. But do you know why I went? It's because of how much respect and love and admiration I have for those two. I didn't go for God. I went because they asked me. And now, every Sunday, they pick me up for church. Still, 2 years later, they pick me up for church. We go to church, and then we go out for breakfast every Sunday. So it was through this whole experience, dedicated, committed with a suicide plan, not just a thought. I was committed to carrying out this plan. God takes me here, and then he brings me in this building, and he introduces me to the people who ultimately take me back to my God. It has to be God, because I never would have orchestrated any of this shit. I don't even like California. I hate California. I hate the state. But I won't leave because this is where my people are. And whatever God has going, whatever God wants to use me for, I believe it's going to be here. It's just my hunch. So
that's so beautiful.
I really believe God was involved in every step of this.
What would you say to somebody kind of struggling with the God idea? I've recently been talking about this a lot in like almost every recent podcast because I'm obsessed with hearing everybody's different opinions and takes. But it seems to me that like every person I've interviewed, like God plays a huge role in their life. And for you, it's, very clear. And so what do you think you would say to somebody who has doubt? It doesn't even have to be just, is it like, do you need faith in something? What are your thoughts?
I think it's simpler than that. One, I never try to convince anybody of God.
Of course.
It's a very personal thing, even for me. You know, I have strong Christian faith, but I don't talk about it because it's between me and God mostly. So I don't try to convince people of it, but I'll tell you what I have seen, countless times, even when I look back and when I was clean before, I never realized it, but I saw it then. I don't think I've ever seen anyone come into the rooms. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I'm saying I haven't seen it. Come into the rooms, find a community, fellowship, get entrenched in recovery, and work the steps honestly and get to a point of service and not come to discover God, whatever that looks like. I don't think I've seen it. People often say, I don't believe in God. Some people may actually believe that God doesn't exist. Let me tell you something. I'm a scientist. I have 19 years of higher level education and training, and the more I learn, the more I believe in God. The more I believe in God. I think God is the only explanation for what we see. But if that's not good enough, dive into the work. I really believe this. Dive into the steps. See how you change. You may not be driving the G-Wagon, You may not be wearing, Louis Vuitton shit and all this kind of nonsense. But you're going to change. And I believe that presence, that peace that people find, serenity, they talk about it in both books. It's going to make you wonder, maybe God is involved here. I really believe that. It doesn't have to be my God. It doesn't have to be anybody's God. But you're going to understand, I believe that going through the work, you're going to discover there is a presence greater than me. And even if God doesn't exist, even if God, let me say this, even if God is not responsible for everything that's happened in the last 2.5 years for me, even if God had nothing to do with it, you know what? I love to believe that God was involved. I just love believing that.
As a doctor, do you believe that addiction is a disease or not?
I'm glad that it's classified as recognized as a disease because people like us can get the help we need. Whether it is or not, the short answer is who cares? I don't care. Call it what you want, a disease, a disorder, a derangement, whatever. Call it what you want. It's real. I know that. Okay? What I know is that you're talking about very intelligent and talented people, and I've met hundreds of them, if not thousands, who do the ridiculous. Everything they do, it defies reason, it makes no sense, it defies rationale, and they continue to do it until everything's gone. Something's got to be wrong, right? I mean, something is wrong. And people say, well, it's why, I still have people that say, I love them, but they'll still say, hey, you clean still? Yeah. Okay. Well, don't do anything stupid. No. People still believe this is just a stupidity issue, right? And I understand why they believe that. I do. Look at what I've done to my life, But if you watch someone do that over the course of time, knowing that if I hit this, I'm putting this at risk, I'm going to do that again and again and again and again and again until it's gone. At the very least, it's a mental disorder. I mean, let me ask you this. If take out crack or take out booze or take out anything and insert anything else, Captain Crunch. Okay. I can't stop eating Captain Crunch even if it costs me my wife, if I get diabetes, if it costs obesity, if it costs me my life, if it costs me my fortune, everything. I can't stop eating Captain Crunch. Any person on this planet would say they're nuts. They need help. Would they not?
Yeah. You
can't stop. You need help, brother. You need help.
But instead, what is even the right word?
No,
we put them down.
We're denigrated and castigated and all kinds of shit. But again, I understand why that is, because what do we do when we're loaded? What do we do when we're loaded? We do dangerous shit. We do hurtful shit, not just to ourselves, to everybody else. And that's what people see. And I'm not trying to make an excuse for anything that I've done or any harm that I've caused. I'm not. But it is an explanation. There is something wrong. Let me put it another way. Let's go back to my mother, the example I used before. You give my mom 2 martinis in the keys of the car, and she gets a DUI or runs a car off the road or something like that. I promise you 2 things. 1, she will never drink again. And 2, she will never think of drinking again. That's a safe bet. Most people would be like that. Woo-hoo-hoo, Or you go out on a bender one night, you come home, you're smelling like, booze and perfume, and your wife says, hey, if this happens again, I'm gone. Non-alcohol, most people would say, okay, done, I'm done, and I'm not even going to think about it. I'm done. You get a guy like me who goes through 2 wives, a daughter, a fortune, a retirement, 3 medical licenses, 4 board certifications, all my material possessions, and my will to live because of this, and I want more? You're telling me that's not a fucking disorder of the mind? But that's the way it is. And I can't think around it. This is not an intellectual problem. It's not an intellectual battle.
What kind of battle do you think it is?
This is a battle of, you can call it spiritual battle. A lot of it's emotional, spiritual. It's a fuzzy realm in the spiritual and emotional realm. But what I have found is that when I work on my spiritual condition, which affects my emotions, I get into a place where I don't get into extreme emotional volatility anymore. I can get a little angry, a little sad, a little up, a little down, whatever, and I don't feel the need to pick anything up. I don't feel the need. But think about that. I can smoke away everything in my life, and it never occurs to me, no. You know what? The only thing on my mind the first day in detox is what? Another crack pipe. That's the only thing I'm thinking about. More. Yes, it's a fucking disease. Are you kidding me? But the truth is, what difference does it make? We have a solution. That's where I'm at now.
And guess what? You have 1 year tomorrow.
No.
It aligned, and that I think another example that like God is here and with us.
Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing. Because I haven't heard from you. I mean, it's been, when is the last time I saw you?
I moved out of LA a year ago.
Okay.
It's like officially been a year. Like I think it was like April 5th.
Maybe at Charles's workshop or something? Maybe.
I really
it's been a long time though.
Maybe Newcastle, I'm not sure. I don't know. And that's something beautiful about this community out here as well. No longer how long it's been. It's like, it feels like I just saw you yesterday in a sense.
I know.
And like we're talking like we just saw each other yesterday.
It's crazy.
And it feels amazing.
And honestly, I'm 53 years old now. And the crazy thing is, honestly, I've never had relationships like this in my life, ever. I mean, I had some good friends, acquaintances, but like this, I could call Michael at 2 a.m. and say, hey, dude, I got a body I need to get rid of. Where are you at? Give me 20 minutes to clean out the trunk of my car. I'll be right there. I've never had that kind of friendship. So I get it. And I feel that way with everybody in this community. I just see them and feel comfort.
Yeah.
Feel secure.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on the podcast today.
I'm very grateful that you asked me to speak. Anything I can do, but and I'm always grateful to just be able to offer some message of relatability and of hope. It's there is hope for us. And the last thing I'll say is I'm one of the few doctors you'll meet who will openly say a pill or a strip or whatever it is not the solution to your problem. It's 12-step recovery.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful that I found that. So,
thank you, Kenny.
Go ahead.
Amazing.